Every year, more than 300 million tons of salt are extracted worldwide, an amount so vast that if gathered together, it could blanket all of New York City beneath a layer of salt tens of meters thick. From these tiny crystals emerges the foundation of countless essential industries, the maintenance of biological balance, and the direct sustenance of all humankind. Yet within this immense volume, only a rare few rise beyond the role of a simple seasoning to become cultural heritage. Asín Tibuok, crystallized from coconut husk ash and fired clay, with a deep mineral character and a whisper of smoke. Namak, sharp-edged with its unmistakable sulfurous aroma. Bamboo salt, rounded and savory, leaving a warm mineral finish after 9 firings over open flame. And Guérande, pure and delicate, lightly crisp and slow to dissolve in the sea breeze of France. Today, join Agriculture Insight as we delve into the journey of the 4 most expensive and rare salts on the planet, where essence is distilled from humble raw materials, artisanal craftsmanship creates luxury, and hidden minerals become culinary symbols of an entire region's identity. Our first stop brings us to Bohol Island, a land of heritage coconut groves and some of the saltiest tidal waters in the Philippines. Here, Asín Tibuok, one of the rarest salts on Earth, stands on the brink of extinction, with fewer than 5 families still preserving its traditional, closely guarded craft. The process begins with the careful selection of fully matured coconuts. The first step is husking, during which skilled artisans remove the shell and flesh, preserving only the thick, fibrous husk, the sole material whose capillary structure is perfectly suited to absorbing and retaining salt crystals. These husks are then densely packed into coastal marsh pits known as bonbon, where they are submerged in seawater for 3 to 6 months. Guided by the rhythm of the tides, the coconut fibers act as both a natural filter and reservoir, quietly drawing salt and oceanic minerals deep into every strand. At this stage, a natural exchange reaction takes place. The interaction between tannins in the coconut husk and trace minerals from the seawater gradually turns the fibers a distinctive black, clear evidence that the husks are fully mineralized. This transformation signals the artisans that the husks are ready to be retrieved and dried under the intense tropical sun. Once the mineral concentration reaches its ideal level, thousands of coconut husks are loaded onto bamboo rafts and transported to the processing site. At the workshop, the salt-soaked coconut husks are stacked into large mounds and burned continuously for 7 full days. Throughout this intense transformation by fire, artisans maintain a constant 24/7 watch, carefully controlling the temperature while repeatedly dousing the burning husks with seawater. Under the force of extreme heat, moisture evaporates, leaving salt and oceanic minerals to concentrate and accumulate, transforming the ash into a dense mineral reservoir. The final product is gasang, a fine white ash with an exceptionally high salt content. With the saline ash prepared, the process shifts to the construction of a natural filtration system. Fresh buri palm leaves are cut into sections approximately 40 centimeters long, then layered and interwoven to line the interior of massive bamboo funnels. The choice of buri leaves is a deliberate technical decision. Their rigid veins withstand the pressure of the ash mass, while their naturally water-resistant surface channels the concentrated salt solution downward without loss. Once securely reinforced, the gasang ash is poured in and compacted into a uniform block, after which artisans begin the leaching process using thousands of liters of seawater. Over the course of several hours, the water percolates through the ash, dissolving the concentrated salt crystals and trace oceanic minerals. At this stage, the ash functions like a natural carbon filter, removing impurities and leaving behind only the purest essence. Tasik, an amber-colored liquid with a saturated mineral concentration, nearly 10 times saltier than seawater. Yet it is precisely this saturated salinity that creates the ideal conditions for crystallization. At the firing site, hundreds of hand-molded clay pots are packed tightly together atop long hearths built from hardened ash and stone. This seamless arrangement forms a uniform heat-retaining surface maintained at 200 to 300 degrees Celsius, minimizing energy loss and ensuring that every vessel is subjected to the same intensity of flame. The oval shape of each pot is equally intentional. Its structure optimizes convective heat flow, forcing salt crystals to form evenly from the core outward. Notably, each pot is used only once, rendering every salt block a singular, unrepeatable creation. To prevent thermal shock and structural cracking, artisans keep a pan of tussock boiling constantly nearby, replenishing the pots with hot liquid continuously over 24 hours. This sustained pressure of concentration is the decisive factor, allowing salt crystals to compact tightly, bond durably, and achieve absolute density uniformity from the base to the rim of the vessel. After roughly a full day and night, when thermal cracks begin to run along the body of the clay pots, a clear sign that the salt blocks have fully matured and all residual moisture has escaped, the kiln is finally allowed to go dark. Cooling then occurs naturally, enabling the salt to stabilize its structure and compact further from within. The result is Asín Tibuok in its finished form. Stone-hard, uniquely oval blocks with a sharp, assertive salinity, a gentle smoky finish, and faint fruity notes drawn from the coconut husk. Priced at up to USD 100 per block, on par with England's famed Maldon Salt Company, or premium smoked salts from the Pacific Northwest, Asín Tibuok is often shaved directly over dishes by discerning chefs, used as a luxurious finishing salt. In its homeland of the Philippines, however, this salt is the soul of humble fare. From bowls of lugaw rice porridge to crisp green mangoes, where its smoky depth elevates the simplest ingredients into something unforgettable. Leaving Southeast Asia behind, the journey continues with Namak, a salt that also forms into rounded but rugged blocks, marked by a deep reddish-black hue and a distinctive sulfur aroma reminiscent of boiled eggs. Its salinity is dry, sharp, and intensely mineral, leaving a bold, lingering finish rarely found in other salts. Originating in northern India at the foothills of the Himalaya, Namak is produced from pristine rock salt deposits dating back 800 million years, transformed through a deliberate process of firing and chemical conversion. The process begins with the preparation of cylindrical kilns, solidly constructed from refractory bricks and clay. The fuel used is a distinctive blend of charcoal, tree bark, and dried cow dung. This combination is chosen not merely for its heat output, but to establish a reducing environment within the kiln. Such conditions are essential for chemical reactions to proceed in isolation from external oxidation, laying a stable foundation for the transformation of the salt's physical and chemical properties. Himalayan rock salt is first crushed into smaller pieces before being loaded into earthenware pots and tightly sealed with clay lids. The kiln is then fired continuously for approximately 24 hours, allowing temperatures to rise beyond 800 degrees Celsius. At this extreme threshold, the salt does more than heat up. It fully melts into a liquid state. This molten phase is the key mechanism of the process, enabling trace minerals to reorganize their structure and creating the conditions for thorough chemical interactions with organic additives introduced at later stages. Once the salt has fully melted, artisans add harad seeds along with an additional amount of charcoal. This is the most critical stage of the entire process, as it ultimately determines the quality of the finished salt. Organic compounds within the harad seeds act as powerful reducing agents, stripping oxygen from sulfate groups naturally present in the rock salt and converting them into sulfides. It is this reaction that releases sulfur compounds, producing the distinctive aroma reminiscent of cooked eggs and imparting the salt with its deep purplish-black hue through the formation of iron sulfide. Once the firing cycle is complete, the kiln is not rapidly cooled. Instead, it is left to cool naturally over 2 to 3 days. This slow cooling process allows the salt crystals to recrystallize into a tightly compacted mass, achieving a hardness comparable to that of gemstones. When the clay pots are finally broken open, the salt emerges with its signature deep purplish-black color. Yet a fascinating paradox occurs. The darker the solid salt block, the lighter, pale pinkish gray, the color becomes once it is finely ground. This phenomenon results from light scattering across ultrafine sulfur particles, a key chemical component responsible for the salt's distinctive character. After this meticulous journey, Namak is sifted, ground, and packaged for market. From a medicinal perspective, it is regarded as a cooling salt, prized for its digestive benefits, its ability to reduce bloating, and its superior effectiveness in maintaining electrolyte balance compared to conventional white salt. Since ancient times, humans have used bamboo as a vessel for storing food, but only in Korea has this plant been elevated into a biological furnace, giving rise to one of the most expensive salts on Earth, 9 times fired purple bamboo salt. The journey begins with the careful selection of moso bamboo, aged 3 to 5 years, the stage at which bamboo sap contains its highest concentration of silicon and trace minerals. In heritage bamboo forests, only culms that meet strict standards of thickness and maturity are harvested, then cut into uniform sections, leaving one natural node intact to create exceptionally durable containers. Inside the workshops, artisans hand-pack pure sea salt into each bamboo tube. To achieve the required density, the salt is compressed under intense pressure to eliminate all air pockets, a critical technique that ensures full contact between the salt crystals and the bamboo walls, while preventing internal air expansion that could cause the tubes to rupture during firing. The decisive step in this stage is sealing the open end with mineral-rich yellow clay. Technically, this clay acts as a pressure lock. It prevents the salt from escaping while forcing the bamboo's valuable sap to be driven back into the salt core under the force of the kiln, allowing the bamboo's minerals to fully permeate the salt. To initiate the transformation, the tightly sealed bamboo tubes are stood upright inside stone kilns, fired exclusively with pine wood to produce stable heat and a clean, aromatic flame. During the first firing at 800 degrees Celsius, the bamboo casing burns away completely, releasing abundant sap that flows outward to envelop the salt core. This layer of bamboo resin, together with pine essential oils, acts as a natural catalyst, neutralizing acidic compounds and removing heavy metals from the raw sea salt. Yet a single firing is not enough to achieve absolute purity. After each cycle, the solidified salt is removed, crushed into a fine powder, and repacked into fresh bamboo tubes to begin the next round. This process continues for more than 30 days, culminating in the 9th firing, when temperatures are driven to extreme levels exceeding 1,300 degrees Celsius. At this point, the salt undergoes a complete physical transformation. Its crystals no longer remain solid, but melt and flow like molten lava, glowing red-hot within the kiln. Though labor-intensive and exacting, this prolonged ritual is a definitive commitment to quality. With each passage through fire, concentrations of potassium, magnesium, and organic sulfur are further intensified, while residual impurities are fully broken down, gradually shifting the salt's color from ashen gray to a deep, mystical purple, and endowing it with exceptional antioxidant properties. To recover the finished product, artisans must use specialized steel rods to guide the thick, molten salt out of the kiln before it has a chance to solidify. As it cools, this molten mass recrystallizes into amber-hard slabs of salt, marked by their signature deep purple hue. What follows is a rigorous process of selection. Each slab is broken apart by hand to remove all traces of ash and residue, preserving only the purest inner core. The final salt delivers a profound salinity, followed by an unmistakable finish of pinewood smoke. On average, producing just 1 kilogram of purple bamboo salt requires the consumption of tens of kilograms of raw salt and several tons of pinewood, burned continuously over many days. This extreme expenditure of materials combined with intense thermal pressure fundamentally alters the salt's mineral structure, elevating it far beyond the role of a simple seasoning. Instead, bamboo salt becomes a therapeutic mineral substance, prized for its alkalinity and powerful detoxifying properties. This is why it holds a central place in deep cleansing and holistic wellness regimens, an achievement that ordinary sea salt can rarely attain. In the cinnamon industry, things may look similar at first glance, but in reality there are two fundamentally different harvesting approaches, corresponding to two types of cinnamon and two very distinct end uses. With cassia cinnamon, the type most commonly used for ground cinnamon, the harvesting process is optimized for speed and volume. The tree is cut down once the trunk has fully matured, typically after 10 to 15 years of growth, and the worker then prees and strips the thick bark directly from the wood. Every step is aimed at a single goal: extracting as much bark as possible, as quickly as possible, to supply large-scale industrial production. The result is bark that is thick, hard, and aggressively aromatic, while the tree itself reaches the end of its productive life after just one harvest. But the story doesn't end there. Premium Ceylon cinnamon follows an entirely different logic. Ceylon cinnamon trees are slender, grown in clumps, and harvested while still young. Instead of cutting the tree down completely, the stems are cut at the base using a regenerative, coppicing method, allowing the root system to remain alive and send up new shoots. This is where the real difference begins to show. Thanks to this careful approach, a single Ceylon cinnamon rootstock can be harvested multiple times each year, with a productive lifespan of up to 40 years. The reward for that patience is exceptionally thin cinnamon quills, naturally rolling into dozens of delicate layers, releasing an aroma that is light, sweet, and clean, never harsh or overpowering. In simple terms, cassia delivers impact, while Ceylon delivers depth. And it is precisely this depth, something that cannot be rushed or mass-produced, that makes Ceylon cinnamon a true premium spice, small in size but high in value. Once delivered to the processing facility, the cinnamon branches are soaked in water tanks for at least 15 minutes to soften the fiber structure, remove surface impurities, and stabilize moisture levels. Once the cinnamon stems are ready, the moment that truly determines their value begins. The bark scraping stage is not just a processing step, but the clear dividing line between premium cinnamon and low-grade cinnamon, arguably more critical than cultivation or drying. The worker holds a specialized scraping knife with a short, curved blade sharpened at a very narrow angle, guiding the hand with millimeter-level precision, so the blade glides over the fragile inner bark, rather than chopping or cutting downward. This inner layer is typically only about 0.2 millimeters thick, so delicate that even a split second of excessive pressure will tear the bark and destroy its commercial value. After scraping, the thin cinnamon bark layers are processed immediately while still wet and stacked around a central core of bark to form a cinnamon quill. The reason is simple: each layer is only a few tenths of a millimeter thick, far too thin to hold its structure once dry. The worker selects bark strips with similar moisture levels and stacks them in an overlapping pattern along the grain to distribute shrinkage evenly. Typically, 8 to 12 layers are assembled, just enough to reach a standard thickness of about 3 millimeters, while creating a hollow structure that helps retain and lock in essential oils. Thanks to this technique, the cinnamon quill naturally curls as it dries, forming an even, lightweight, yet sturdy tube. If this step is skipped or done incorrectly, the bark will warp, crack easily, and is almost impossible to turn into premium cinnamon sticks. After being stacked, the cinnamon sticks enter a controlled drying stage. Instead of being exposed to direct, harsh sunlight, they are placed on multi-tier drying racks indoors or under covered shelters, where light is diffused and air circulates evenly. This process typically lasts around 7 days, depending on weather conditions. The goal is not to dry the cinnamon completely, but to reduce moisture content to about 10 to 12%, dry enough for storage while still preserving essential oils. During this period, the bark layers shrink slowly along the grain, causing the sticks to naturally curl into tubes. If drying happens too quickly, essential oils evaporate. If too slowly, the cinnamon can mold or warp. When done correctly, the cinnamon reaches a stable state and can be shipped thousands of kilometers by sea, while retaining its original aroma. Once drying reaches the required standard, the cinnamon is graded based on length, degree of curl, and the radius of each quill, key factors that determine the commercial value of every stick. After grading, the cinnamon enters the cutting stage, where the agricultural product begins to be standardized into a commercial commodity. Bundles of cinnamon are aligned and cut into standard lengths, typically ranging from 5 to 20 centimeters. Longer pieces are packaged in bulk for wholesale, while sticks shorter than 3 inches are distributed to the retail market. This stage demands decisive yet precise handling, as even a slightly misaligned cut can cause the thin bark layers to separate, making the stick lose its shape and drop in grade. Because of this strict requirement, cutting productivity remains limited. Each worker processes only a few dozen bundles per hour. In return, the finished cinnamon achieves uniform sizing and is fully prepared for packaging, shipping, and global export. After grading, a portion of the cinnamon is directed into the grinding process. Before grinding, the cinnamon is not processed immediately. Instead, its moisture content is checked and stabilized below 12% to prevent mold and ensure that essential oils are not altered during subsequent steps. Once this condition is met, the cinnamon enters a closed grinding system. The sticks are gradually broken down, passing through multiple stages of blades and rollers in an environment where the temperature is kept consistently below 40 degrees Celsius. Maintaining low heat is critical, because once cinnamon is ground into powder, its surface area increases dramatically, making essential oils far more prone to evaporation than in whole sticks. For this reason, freshly ground cinnamon powder is not left exposed. It is immediately sifted to remove coarse particles, brought to a uniform fineness, and then packaged and sealed right away. Known as the second most expensive spice in the world, after saffron, vanilla was once valued at the equivalent of a gold bar per kilogram. Yet vanilla is not merely a spice with an astonishing price tag, it is also a strategic ingredient underpinning the entire global industry of confectionery, beverages, and premium foods. With vanilla, harvesting is not simply about picking pods. It is a harsh race against time, humidity, and even other people. Its high value makes vanilla a constant target for theft, forcing many farms to accept the reality that around 10% of their annual yield disappears each year before the pods ever leave the field. Vanilla reaches peak quality only within a very narrow window of ripeness. Harvesting too early results in weak aroma, while being late by even a single day in humid conditions can cause mold and reduce the pod's value by up to half. For this reason, each vanilla pod is cut entirely by hand using a small knife, requiring speed paired with absolute precision, and is then immediately gathered and transported within the same day to prevent any uncontrolled fermentation from beginning. When the vanilla sacks arrive at the processing facility, they immediately enter a strict security control system. The entire site is surrounded by barbed wire fencing and monitored 24/7 by surveillance cameras to prevent theft. In their raw state, vanilla pods are hard, brittle, and almost entirely odorless. To awaken the latent aroma inside, the pods must undergo a hot water blanching step. This brief but precisely controlled heat treatment softens the pod structure while simultaneously halting natural growth. More importantly, it triggers a chain of enzymatic reactions within the pods, initiating the formation of the characteristic aromatic compounds. Among these compounds, vanillin is the dominant component, accounting for around 90% of vanilla's signature flavor profile. After blanching, the vanilla pods enter the sweating stage, during which they begin to turn a deep brown. This process reduces moisture, concentrates flavor, and allows vanilla's characteristic sweetness to develop. While still warm, the pods are placed into wooden boxes lined with multiple layers of blankets to retain heat for as long as possible. The boxes are then sealed for 48 hours. By the end of this stage, the pods have darkened significantly and are ready to move on to the drying phase. The drying process of vanilla takes place in two stages: sun drying and shade drying. This step is crucial for allowing the pods to fully develop their aroma and rich color. The vanilla pods are spread evenly on cloth and exposed to sunlight for 3 to 5 hours per day over many consecutive days, and are turned frequently to ensure even drying. During this process, skilled workers gently massage the pods to help release essential oils and intensify the aroma. However, the pods cannot be left in the sun all day, as vanilla must retain a certain level of moisture for its flavor to continue developing. After sun drying, the pods are covered and stored overnight, then returned to the sun the following day. After approximately 10 to 15 days of sun drying, the vanilla pods are moved to shade drying in a well-ventilated environment, where they remain for 2 months. After the drying process is complete, vanilla pods undergo strict grading based on length, flexibility, color, and aroma. Pods that meet quality standards are bundled into small groups and tied with twine to preserve their natural shape and prevent cracking during transport. However, not all dried vanilla carries the same value. Across total production, only about 20 to 30% of the highest quality pods are selected for refinement into natural vanilla extract, the most economically valuable product in the vanilla processing chain. The remaining pods are typically sold as dried whole vanilla or used for lower-grade flavoring applications. More striking still, in a global market with enormous demand for vanilla, around 95% of products labeled vanilla contain no real vanilla at all, relying instead on synthetic flavorings. This reality makes each properly cured natural vanilla pod not only rare, but a true concentration of time, craftsmanship, and months of patience. Probably enjoyed a cold, delicious beer and wondered, what gives it that amazing taste? The process of getting the best quality barley for beer starts in lush barley fields, and it wouldn't be possible without the help of modern machinery. But before we dive into the harvest process, there's an important question to answer. When is barley ready to be harvested? Barley typically takes about 4 to 6 months to fully grow, from planting the seeds to being ready for harvest. In the final stage, the barley grains turn a golden or brown color, which is a clear sign that they are ripe and ready to be harvested. A simple way to check is to snap a grain. If it easily breaks off from the stalk, it's the perfect time to harvest. Harvesting at this point ensures that the barley grains don't fall off or lose their nutrients, preserving their flavor and quality. When the barley is ripe, harvesting is done using modern machinery, saving both time and effort for the farmers. On barley fields in the U.S., especially in the Midwest, modern combine harvesters are commonly used for the job. These machines not only help save time, but also optimize the harvesting process, ensuring high efficiency and maintaining the quality of the product. The combine harvester is one of the key machines in the harvesting process. It's equipped with sharp blades that cut the barley right at the base without damaging the quality of the grains. After the barley is separated from the stalks and leaves, it's moved into the machine's storage tank. Once the tank is full, the barley is transferred to a large container on the side of the machine, ready to be quickly and safely transported. The entire harvesting process is continuous, reducing the exposure of the barley grains to the outside environment, which helps preserve their quality. One of the key strengths of modern harvesting machines is their automation and efficiency. These machines don't sort the barley grains by size or ripeness. Instead, they collect all the grains into a storage bin. This helps minimize waste and saves time, while also ensuring the barley is harvested evenly. The machinery also reduces the labor required from farmers, allowing them to harvest large areas in a short amount of time without facing the challenges they used to encounter. Using modern harvesting machines not only brings benefits in terms of time and productivity, but also helps improve sustainability in agriculture. Farmers can harvest barley even in harsh weather conditions without worrying about the grains getting damaged or losing quality from being exposed to the ground or rain for too long. This contributes to the growth of the U.S. agricultural industry and helps provide high-quality raw materials for the food processing sectors, especially beer production. By applying technology to the harvesting process, the U.S. is not only boosting production efficiency, but also strengthening the beer industry, offering great products to consumers. The quick and efficient barley harvest is the foundation for producing delicious, high-quality beers, which plays a significant role in the agricultural economy and food processing industry of the country. After the barley is harvested and transported from the fields to the brewery, the first step in the beer-making process is to store the barley in a warehouse to begin the malting process. Malting is created by soaking the barley in water to trigger germination. In a controlled environment, the enzymes in the barley grains are activated, converting starches into sugars, which will later provide the energy needed for fermentation. Once this process is complete, the barley is dried and becomes malt, the next crucial step in the beer-making journey. Next, the malt will be transferred to milling equipment to be ground into a fine powder. This is the first step in extracting sugars from the malt. The ground malt is then mixed with hot water, which helps the water extract the sugars from the malt. Hot water is added gradually while stirring, and at a temperature of around 65 degrees Celsius to 70 degrees Celsius, the enzymes in the malt break down the starches into simple sugars, creating a sweet liquid. The liquid is then extracted and moved to a filtering tank. Here, the water is drained off, separating it from the leftover malt solids. The malt solids can be repurposed as animal feed. The liquid is then boiled in brew kettles. This step is crucial for sterilizing the liquid and removing any unwanted bacteria, while also concentrating the flavors. During the boiling process, hops are added. Hops not only give the beer its bitterness, but also add distinctive flavors. The timing of when the hops are added varies depending on the type of beer being made, allowing brewers to control the bitterness and flavor profile of the beer. Afterward, the wort is quickly cooled down. The liquid is cooled to around 20 degrees Celsius to prepare it for fermentation. This process takes place in large containers that have been thoroughly sanitized to ensure no bacteria or contaminants get in. After fermentation, the beer undergoes strict quality checks to ensure it meets the highest standards. Finally, the beer is bottled in glass bottles or canned in stainless steel cans, ready for distribution. The bottles are sealed and labeled before being sent to warehouses, where they are then distributed to stores, supermarkets, or restaurants, so consumers can enjoy the results of this carefully crafted process. Although all come from the same tea plant, Japanese matcha uses only the top 1 or 2 young shaded leaves known as tencha and consumed whole, while Chinese green tea, sencha, and English tea use larger sun-grown leaves that are brewed and discarded. Matcha is not simply green tea ground into powder, but the result of a deliberate intervention in light, something most other teas never undergo. Shading is a mandatory ritual and the key that creates the distinctive status of authentic Japanese matcha. Each April, across the tea hills of Kyoto and Aichi, thousands of hectares are covered with dark shade nets capable of blocking up to 90% of sunlight. When light is restricted, the tea plant is forced to alter its growth. Chlorophyll levels rise sharply, and sugars are converted into L-theanine, the amino acid responsible for matcha's smooth, gentle, umami sweetness. By contrast, green tea grown under direct sunlight tends to develop more pronounced bitterness and astringency. To maintain these ideal conditions, farmers must constantly adjust shade nets and support frames in response to the weather. This is a costly and highly precise process, as even a few days out of sync can cause the leaves to mature too quickly or lose their optimal flavor. It is this significant investment and discipline that define the value of high-grade matcha and explain why it consistently commands a premium price. As the shade is lifted, matcha's journey enters its decisive moment, harvesting the purest young leaves. For the highest grades of matcha, harvesting is not simply about gathering tea leaves. It is a manual craft that demands near absolute precision. While sencha, the most widely consumed green tea in Japan, can be machine harvested to maximize efficiency, ceremonial-grade matcha, the highest tier used in traditional tea ceremony, is always hand-picked, 100%. The harvest takes place during the first flush of spring, when the tea plant emerges from winter dormancy and concentrates its nutrients at the tip. Harvesters select only the top 2 to 3 young leaves, where L-theanine levels are highest and the leaf structure is soft and low in fiber, ideal for producing matcha powder that is fine and well-rounded in flavor. At the core of leaf selection is not sight, but touch. Skilled artisans scarcely need to look, as their fingertips have become the most precise measure of all. However, for culinary-grade matcha used in industrial food production and beverages, human hands alone can no longer keep pace with the massive demand of the modern F&B industry, forcing machines to enter the game. On tea hills with steep, fragmented terrain, a defining feature of many tea-growing regions in Japan, handheld mechanical harvesters become the optimal solution. Operated by 1 or 2 workers, these machines use a horizontally fixed cutting blade to harvest the top layer of leaves in a single pass, while rear-mounted suction fans collect the leaves directly into storage bags. Compared to hand-picking, productivity can increase 4 to 6 times, while still maintaining a degree of control on terrain inaccessible to larger machinery. Another major advance in the mechanization of Japan's tea industry is the self-propelled harvester. High speed, uniform output, and low labor costs make it the near-default choice for commercial tea and mass-market sencha. On large fields, a single machine can harvest in 1 hour what hand-picking would take a full day, with fixed cutting heights and suction systems ensuring standardized yields and tightly controlled costs. Even so, machines are limited by preset cutting heights and cannot distinguish leaves at peak flavor. That is why, for high-grade matcha, where every leaf shapes the final quality, human hands remain irreplaceable. Immediately after harvest, batches of young tea leaves are transported to the processing facility as quickly as possible. A window of 1 to 3 hours after picking is considered a safe threshold, helping to limit oxidation and preserve the leaves' natural flavor. At the matcha factory, upon arrival, the leaves are spread evenly onto conveyor belts in thin layers rather than piled together. Some facilities also use gentle airflow from fans to cool the leaf surface, releasing heat accumulated during transport and preventing the leaves from self-steaming when compressed. But this fresh state lasts only a very short time. To lock in every biological change still unfolding, the tea leaves must move immediately into the steaming stage. At this stage, freshly harvested leaves are treated with non-pressurized steam, a technique that may appear simple, yet one that Japan has preserved and refined over centuries. The goal is not to cook the leaves like vegetables, where heat dulls color and breaks down structure, but to arrest biological reactions at a critical moment. A light veil of steam briefly envelops the leaf surface, just long enough to deactivate oxidative enzymes without stripping the leaves of their vitality. As a result, the green color not only remains intact but becomes clearer, deeper, and more stable, while the raw, harsh notes of young leaves are effectively eliminated. The entire steaming process lasts only 20 to 40 seconds, and is precisely controlled in sync with the conveyor system. Though it occupies only a brief moment within the overall production line, steaming is a decisive step. Without it, the leaves would continue to oxidize like black tea, and the full premium potential of matcha would be lost immediately. After steaming, the tea leaves must be dried almost immediately to stabilize their structure and prevent residual moisture from continuing to affect the leaf cells. Unlike sencha, leaves intended for matcha are not rolled or twisted. Instead, they are dried flat, using a multi-stage hot air drying system, with temperature and duration tightly controlled, typically around 80 to 100 degrees Celsius for up to 40 minutes. The goal is not to shape the leaves, but to remove moisture evenly while preserving leaf structure and chlorophyll content. The result of this process is tencha, the indispensable foundation of authentic Japanese matcha, ready for the next stages of refinement. Next, the fully dried tea leaves are fed into a refining system where veins and stems are removed almost entirely. This stage is typically carried out using specialized separation machines that combine mechanical vibration, airflow, and multi-layered sieving to sort the material by weight and structural flexibility. The heavier fibrous stems and veins are discarded, while only the thinnest, softest portions of the leaf are retained. This step is highly selective. Even small amounts of residual stem can compromise the smoothness and flavor of the final powder. The outcome is refined tencha, uniform in structure, consistent in quality, and brought to an ideal state for what follows. Once refined tencha has been rested and its aroma stabilized, it is coarsely cut using low-speed rotary cutters, producing uniform tencha flakes and granules. This intermediate form prepares the leaves for the most critical stage of the entire process, grinding them into matcha powder. Contrary to common assumption, matcha is not produced using high-speed industrial grinding systems. Instead, the traditional and virtually irreplaceable method is the granite stone mill, a technology that has existed in Japan for more than 800 years and remains in use today. Each mill consists of two circular stone discs. The lower stone remains fixed, while the upper stone rotates slowly on a vertical axis. Hand-carved spiral grooves on the stone surface are designed to grind the leaves while gently guiding the powder outward. The mechanism may appear simple, but it is remarkably precise. Rather than being torn apart or crushed as in industrial mills, tencha is gradually milled between the two stone surfaces. The rotation speed is extremely slow, typically around 30 to 60 revolutions per minute, to minimize friction and heat buildup. Even a slight rise in temperature can degrade chlorophyll, dull umami, and compromise the refined character of high-grade matcha. This deliberate slowness results in an almost paradoxical output by modern industrial standards. A single stone mill produces only about 30 to 40 grams of matcha per hour, barely enough for a few dozen bowls of tea. In return, the powder achieves an ultra-fine, highly uniform particle size, dissolves smoothly in water, and delivers a texture and flavor structure that metal grinders cannot replicate. While industrial mills can produce dozens of kilograms per hour, they rely on intense mechanical force, generate significant heat, and trade quality for speed. For high-grade matcha, that trade-off is unacceptable. This is why the stone mill, slow, ancient, and exacting, remains the gold standard. Not because of tradition, but because even today, no technology does it better. Once the powder reaches its ideal state, fine, uniform, and vividly green, packaging begins. Matcha can be packaged in various formats, depending on its intended use and market segment. The most common is the stick pack format for beverages, widely used for matcha lattes and mixed drinks, and packaged fully automatically. Another format is paper sachets or tea bags, designed for convenient everyday consumption. In the premium segment, matcha is typically sealed in airtight metal tins to protect the powder from light, moisture, and oxygen, the three elements that can degrade color and flavor. Regardless of the format, packaging is not merely the final step, but a critical line of defense that preserves matcha in its optimal condition until it reaches the consumer.